Hi there and welcome to another Camera Raw class. Today we're going to see how the tonal curves work in the program. Let's choose some photos to work with. I'm going to choose maybe this one, this one, this one, and this one, and this one here. Let's see how we can work on the tonal curves, the second panel here after the basic development. In these examples, first we have to make some small developments, like a normal basic one. And then we're going to go and improve the general contrast in the photo using two techniques, the point curve and the parametric curve. Let's start with the normal development. We can see that this photo is underexposed, so we're going to give it some more exposition, take some of the information to the right. The camera we used to take the photo will decide how aggressive these adjustments can be. If we raise a little bit the shadows and we later amplify this area here, well, we'll surely see that we've got some noise. If we hit here on color noise reduction on the third panel, as we saw before, well, we can see that maybe in some areas, because of an excess of exposure or of shadows, we're going to get some noise. We're going to apply a color noise reduction and we won't have that many problems. If we don't want to get to those extreme points when we raise the lights and the shadows, so we just have to push a little on the area of the lights and not so much on the shadows. We're going to give a little bit of clarity and some vibrance to the colors. Okay, so here we can see the adjustment before and after the basic development. We can also take advantage and straighten. Choose here a line on which we want to straighten. To make sure this adjustment looks good, we should give it the proportion that we need. In this case, we're going to give it a 3:2 proportion to make sure the image doesn't get cropped on the top. Now if I hit enter, well, we'll have the line that I've marked as a reference so that it straightens. But maybe the verticals get twisted, as we can see. So in this case, what we have is a mismatch on the horizontal lines. So we're going to go back to the crop tool. We'll hit escape once, as we saw in that lesson, and we're going to lead the photo like this. Or we could straighten this vertical line and it looks much better. Okay, well, it might not look that much better. Some might think the door is like falling a little. So we're going to leave it as it was. In the future, we're going to correct the perspective, the vertical one and the horizontal one. For now, what we're trying to do is to improve the global contrast of the image. That we've worked here, and we've stretched the histogram to cover both shadows and lights, but the tonal curve is going to adapt the image a little to how we perceive the contrast in a natural image. For this, we have two adjustments, either the parametric curve or the point curve. The point curve may be a little complex and not very intuitive, and the parametric curve is a little simpler because it divides the answer this photo gives to the light in 4 areas that correspond with the areas we've seen here in the basic development of illumination, lights, shadows, and blacks. So we do something like this: blacks, whites, illuminations, and shadows. This here, this area here, the dark areas and the shadows, well, each of them is related to a part of this diagonal line. The darkest area of the image would be here. This would be the halftones that are grayer, the clearer halftones, and the area of the whites and the higher illuminations. Okay, so with these regulators, we can contribute to making a curve. This is why this panel is called a curve. We're going to make a small curve in the way you're going to see now. Here in the lights and the illuminations, and here in the shadows and the darks. We'll make a small curve like this in the shape of an arch. And this is a typical contrast curve that can make our photo have a more natural answer to our view than what the camera has done before. If we double click here on each of these regulators, we're taking the level, well, we're taking it to its original level. So, as we have 4 areas, we can intervene on only one of those areas to give a little more light or to give it a little more shade. If we increase it in this way, and if we increase the contrast in this way, we're going to see that the answer, as I said before, is a little more natural. It doesn't have to be very exaggerated. We don't want to make a very exaggerated curve, so that would darken the shades too much and clear the lights too much. It would increase the contrast in such a way that it wouldn't be natural. But we can use this as an artistic thing if somebody would want to do that. It would be ideal for us to make this area here, that's the one with the clear half tones and the lights, goes up a little bit, separates from the diagonal, and the shadows and the half tones that are darker go down a little bit. Separating themselves from the diagonal, stretching downwards, making this area a little darker. And we're going to make this one a little more clearer. So, as it's very simple, we could first analyze what part of the photo we want to have a little more light. In this case, it would correspond with the wall area, the lightest area. If I go over it, I'll start to lose detail. If I go all the way, it will become a white color without texture. So, well, we don't want it to be very pronounced. It also depends on the type of photo we're working with, which we'll see in some other examples. In this case, we're going to make the shadows go a little below the diagonal, and we would get that contrast that we're seeing. Okay, so with this, we could leave it here. It's a contrast that's not very exaggerated. It's a contrast that's improving on the answer of the photo. And we can see in the before and after that, for some reason, it deactivated. Here we can see the original photo, the after photo, and the basic development and the curve panel work. If I only want to see the curve panel, I can go here and see what I've done, and now it's activated. This is without the curve panel and with it. Without it, with it. It wasn't bad before. Let's look at it in large. It wasn't bad. It's like this. We can leave the basic development on the photo, but the answer has gotten notably better. There are some people who prefer to do this adjustment with the contrast control here in the basic panel. But this contrast control doesn't really allow that many adjustments, or maybe subtler adjustments. So maybe it would be better to leave the contrast on 0, go to the tonal curve, to the parametric tab, and here we can give it a little more light to the clear areas of the photo and a little less to the dark areas. With this, we've made the answer to the photo better, and we can see it better. When we're done, we can go here. We can create, as always, our snapshot. So I'll call it developed plus parametric curves. And then we can compare it with the next one. That would be the original. Putting the image back default, and now we can, as always, compare the before and the after, looking at what we've done. Well, for now, we're going to leave the parametric curve. We're going to go a step further with the point curve, and we're going to develop this photo. As you can see, the light is quite well spread. We could probably adjust the white balance a bit better. If we want a photo that's a little more balanced, we could make the tones a little greener, more magenta, a little greener. Here, well, whatever makes us think of what this photo is meant to look like. There isn't really a correct or incorrect adjustment. We could give the shadows a little more light. We could give them a little more clarity and vibrance. And now if we want to improve on the global contrast of the image, well, I'm just going to go and work on the curve panel. In this case, instead of using the parametric curve, I'm going to use the point curve. Here I can establish what areas as you can see, it's very similar. The square is the same as the one we have in the parametric curve. It's the same square, but here, whenever I click on the diagonal, we're going to get a point that I can work on. I can take it to clarify the area of lights, or I could bring it down to give it more shadow or less light to that area in the photo. When I add in a lot of points, I have more control over a concrete area. So when I move up and down, and I just move that area, and I can anchor more points onto the curve so that the area I want to work on is the only part that's moving. In this case, that would be the center of the flower. If I want to leave it as it was again, I hit here where it says curve and I select linear, and we get the line again without any points. Even though I'm on the linear curve where there's been no change, I can always modify the point on the top right and the bottom left. And these points, if we move them, I can take the picture to a totally opposite side of what it has in its normal configuration. So if we take this point of light to the right, we would have a white image, and if we go the other way, we would have an image without light. This shows us that every time we go up, we're giving light, and if we go down, we're taking it away. If we invert a curve, we can invert it taking this point to the right and taking the other one here to the left. So the lights, let's see if it'll let me. The lights will be the shadows and the shadows will be the lights. Let's do it like this. Let me see. There we go. Okay, so now we have an image where the colors and the illuminations have been inverted. There's a lot of photographers that use these adjustments for creative uses. Okay, so we're making an inverted curve to the diagonal that we would have in a normal image. To get the normal image back, we would just have to go back to the linear adjustment and we could have our unchanged image there. Okay, so to put the points with meaning on the curve, we can do it manually without knowing what areas we'd be working on. I'm going to put one in the middle, and if I drag this line up, I would be giving the midtones more light. If I go down, I'd be giving them less light. As we saw before with the parametric curve, the objective is to make a curve like this, to improve the contrast of the image in contrast with the original image. We can see that we have a much more striking answer, much more interesting. But this can create problems, as we don't exactly control the area we're interested in getting lighter or darker. There's a little trick that we can do. Clicking here and Control. With this, we're going to get the dropper tool, which is going to tell us on the diagonal line the point where we want to work. Let's imagine that I want to give this area some more shade. I'm going to click here and it's going to add in a point. With the Control held, I'm going to come here and I'm going to add in another point. And in this case here, an extra point. Once I have the points that correspond to the areas that I've marked, I can make them have a little less light or a little more light. In the end, I'm making a contrast curve similar to the one I had before, but I'm considering the point that I marked. So what I'll do here is give it a little more light to the shade. We could also give it more light. We would lose contrast. If in a photo we had to give more light to a concrete area, we could do that. But the curve is thought to be able to improve the contrast rather than clearing or darkening areas with lights or shadows. It's more thought out to improve the shadows or the lights and improve the global contrast of the image. We're working right now in the complex channel, RGB, but the point curve adjustment also lets us work in any other of the three channels independently. So that means red, green, and blue. This is interesting because here, in any adjustment in any of these three channels independently, is going to affect the colors of the image and not just the illumination. So if we increase the reds, the image will have more red. But if we lower them, the image will be more cyan. And more cyan means, well, more of a blue or green because of the mix with the yellow. If we go to the green channel and we give it some more green light, obviously the image will turn more into a green. And if we go further down, it will turn towards a complementary tone with the green, which is magenta. We would have more magenta in the image. If we go to blue, it's going to be the same. We can have more blue in the image or more yellow. If we go further down, so in an image like this, it could be interesting for us to make a curve adjustment downwards in the blue channel to increase the yellow color in the photo. So now we can see the setting in the original photo and the setting we've just given it with the basic development and the curve development, both in the complex RGB channel as in the individual blue channel. In the end, we have a photo that's much more personalized and that achieves the objective we want it to. When we're done, let's go to the snapshot panel, as always, and let's make a snapshot called Development and Point Curve. And we're going to compare it with the default image, the original. And here we can see what we've been able to do with a simple photo like this one with the developing and the point curve. Both in the complex channel, we can see here RGB that has a little contrast curve, and in the blue channel that we've moved a little to the bottom so it could lose a little intensity and the yellow could gain some. These are some possibilities that we can get with the curve adjustment in Camera Raw that if one wishes to sit down for a while with it, they can get some pretty weird adjustment. Let's see now and try to see some details we've missed in a photo like this one. We're going to raise a little light. Let's eliminate a little bit of the light in the sky. Let's give it some clarity, some more intensity, and we can adjust the color temperature. We're going to make it a little warmer with a little more green. Okay, so up to now, we've done the basic development. We can see there's an area with a lot of light in the sky. So we're going to lower here a little of the sky so it's not so burnt. And what I'm going to do is increase the light in the shadows. But we can get to a moment where it doesn't matter how much I increase the light in the shadows, I can take it to 100. I'm not adjusting all of the light I want in this area. Okay, so to do this, we can use the curve settings. And here in the parametric curve, the simple one, we can raise the light of the shadows without affecting the sky, and the light in the area of the darkest shadows, that would be the blacks, and have an extra bit of light that we can actually take to the extremes if we wanted. That makes the light value in this area of this image, it kind of leaves the range, and we get some weird grays without any kind of texture. And we did this with the exaggeration we just did on the light area in the image. So we have to be careful here. We're lifting the darkest area in the photo just a bit without going too far. Here, under the graph that shows us levels of light of light in the image from black to white, we have the parametric curve, 3 regulators that we can expand to have an adjustment a little higher than when we want to take it to a further extreme than what the basic adjustment lets us. The basic one comes to around here more or less. Here, no matter how much we want to increase it, it has a top. But if you open these extremes and you take them to wherever you can, when you work with these regulators, the effect is going to always be more measured. It's not going to be as exaggerated as when you lower it from here, and it's pretty close to the 3 triangles. Okay, so what's recommendable here to do? Well, we could work from the default setting. We can see here, we'll put it all on 0. And what's recommendable to do is to open a little, expand both the light and the shadow regulators, and then work, once we've done the curve, I'm going to open here a little more the light in the darkest part of the image, and we can work now with a triangle in the middle. The midtone's in this area, to give a little less light or a little more light. So in this case, I would take it to the right, and with that I can get a better light answer to this area, without affecting the part of the sky. We'll leave the sky as it is, although if we wanted to, we could use this regulator to lower the light on the part with the most light. So in this area here, we can recover a little more texture. Okay, we can see here the before and the after, and we can see how we've worked on the areas of the shadows with the parametric curve. And with this adjustment of these triangles down here, okay, what they do is they open up the range of possibilities the curve adjustment can give us, or it can keep it within the limits. For example, if I want to increase the contrast in this case, I just have to move the regulator on the left to the right, and I'm increasing the contrast of this area down here. If I leave it here on the left, I'm keeping the mid-dark tones in that level of light that they had, but I can give more light to everything and increase it. Here we can see that what I'm doing is increasing the answer curve of the midtones. They're going up, and here they're going down. So we can look at the curve and see what's happening when we move these regulators. In this case, I'm increasing the light in the midtones, and here we can see the midtones are a little darker. In that way, we can, well, have the light we want and see the before and the after. Okay, so then we could go to the rest of the panels, like the HSL panel, to improve the tones of green with the targeted adjustment tool. Get the tone and decide whether we want maybe a more cyan tone or more yellow. In this case, it could use a little more yellow. We'll go to the saturation, we'll give it some more saturation, and we could make the yellow more luminance, or we could make it darker. We're looking for the most natural adjustment. We could do the same with the sky. I want the sky to have less illumination and to have a little more saturation. So as we have a little bit too much light here, it's going to be a bit overexposed. So we're going to look for the color that it has in the part there. But hey, we have a photo. If we compare it with the original, we can see that it's gained a lot in the color in the sky and in textures and illumination in the shadow areas. In the same way we do always, we can come here and create a snapshot of the developed image, and we'll call it this, and we'll compare it with the default image or the original. Now we're going to go back to the natural view, and we can compare between the two. And we can see how the image has gained a lot of light here and detail and color in the sky. Well, this is what we can do with the parametric and point curves in Camera Raw. And it's always a tool that can be useful when the basic development doesn't leave us satisfied with the photo, or because we want to go further and create a more artistic adjustment, like with an inversion or an adjustment in the channels to move the colors in the photo. In this case, we could use in this photo, we could go to the point curve and we could play with the green tone to get maybe a more greener tone, or to mix it with a little bit of magenta. We can also do this giving a little curve, and in the illumination adding a little more green, and in the shadow area we add a little less green. Here we can make the adjustments so that it looks however we want it to. If we don't want to ruin the photo, these adjustments are always going to be short, like little kind of things. If not, in the end, we'll get a colored photo, even more so here, where we have a lot of green. And this is pretty much everything the tool can give us. I hope you enjoyed this class, and I'll see you guys in the next one, where we'll be seeing how to change colored image to black and white using different methods. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be cray cray. I hope you guys come. See you later.